Just by virtue of your existence, your brand exists. LaFern is an adventurous leader, a deep thinker, a person who's always looking for the yes. And the purpose of this particular segment is to start working on getting specific about what your brand is. A person who looks for possibility, looks for options. If I were to ask you to give me 25 descriptors of who you are, I see LaFern as a person, what you do, who is always looking for, and the value you deliver, an option, a solution, a goal, something that makes it seem possible. How many of you could immediately do it without hesitation? That's who LaFern is.
What makes LaFern different from other professional speakers is she really knows how to connect with her audience.
I go to my family for inspiration. My mother, who has walked through some challenging experiences in life and has done very well at grooming her children for success, she inspires me. My father, I could see the sparkle in his eyes when he saw me. That inspired me because from a very early age, I knew I had something to offer. I felt like it when I entered his space. I come from a family that is comprised of 4 generations of business owners. I could look around the world and see many leaders, and there are some who really inspire me, but on a different level. There's nothing like seeing someone you know, whose space you've been in, whose influence has touched you deeply, that is inspiring to me. So that's my family, the leaders within my family. I think that's the greatest gift that's been given to me.
I think she's a real person, and I think she has real life stories to tell, and I think people can relate to that, and that's what makes her so dynamic.
Knowing your core values, knowing your strengths, the things you do better than most. I want to come in with practical concepts that have a powerful impact on your organization. Something that when you leave, you say, I can take that. I can use that idea. I can apply it today. I don't want you to live in a business environment where you have all of these great ideas and lots of books up on the shelf and notes from the conference, but you don't have anything that you're implementing. I am all about execution. How do you take what you have and turn it into real results within your organization? That's the difference.
Very, very smart, intelligent woman, and able to take complicated information and really make it easy for people to understand.
Because there's something I understand about who I am and what I do. It's not about me. It's about the results that I'm able to help others experience. And I come into every client situation with that same perspective. I appreciate and respect your expertise. I respect your knowledge about who you are and what you do. Allow me to come in and bring a unique perspective, challenge the way you do things, help you think about them a little differently, and get to an outcome that can have a significant impact on your organization. That's what I'm committed to doing for you. Good afternoon, and I am so loud that I'm about to blow myself away. How are you doing this afternoon? You're enjoying your meals? He's looking like, where is she? And why does she sound so close? Because I am standing right here. You know how they say 40 is the new 30? Anybody appreciate when you hear that? 50 is the new 30. I'm there with you. So the back is the new front. Yeah, I saw that look like, what? You're going to be back here? Absolutely. Sometimes, not all the time.
Turn the chairs around.
We don't have to turn.
Okay.
Not yet. So thank you so much for coming out this afternoon, taking time out of your busy day. We're going to engage in some exciting material. If you came to listen only, this is not the best place for you to be today. There is nowhere to hide, nowhere to run. I can make eye contact with everyone in this room. Keep your head down if you want. I'm coming to a table near you. What I want to do is make sure we engage as much as we possibly can around a topic that is typically quite important to those of us who are in business, whether or not you own the business or lead the business, regardless of your capacity. What we're going to talk about is going to be something that affects you in some way. What do you think about when you think branding? Branding. What comes to mind for you? Anybody? This is a real question.
Name recognition.
Name recognition. What else? Credibility. What else? Image. What else? Reputation. Consistency. Did I hear change? Challenge. How many of you have ever been to or may still go to McDonald's? Ever been? Ever been? Okay, confession. This is Vegas. I won't tell anybody that you go to or have been to McDonald's. What is it that you like about McDonald's? Nothing. Consistency. What's consistent? French fries. Hot coffee. You know, regardless of whether you go to McDonald's in the US or whether you go to McDonald's in some parts of Asia, you might get some tweaks based on culture. But I know that I can go to a McDonald's anywhere around the world and get French fries. That's my confession. Let me give you an insider tip. If you want hot French fries, order them with no salt, then get to the window and ask for a packet of salt. Don't even look ashamed. It'll get you hot fries every time. Just an insider tip, that one's free. I know you all are eating your lunch. It looks absolutely delicious. I will eat when I am finished. But here's what I don't want. This is unacceptable. If I see this, I will come. You know how the teacher used to come? I don't know what teachers do anymore. Things have changed so much. It's been a while. They used to come when you were doing something and they'd stand beside you, place the hand on your shoulder, and you would know that it was time to stop whatever you were doing. That's what I promised to do. In 2004, I was working for a large corporation. Excellent opportunity, great position, traveled all over, met all types of people, phenomenal experience, but I had a problem. My problem was I went into that company in 2001 with a plan of working for them for 5 years. When they recruited me, I said, fine, I'll go, 5 years, I'm out. My goal was always to start a business, even though I didn't have real clarity around what that business looked like at the time. 2004, my husband and I are headed on a vacation, and we stop in Belize. I love my husband. If you recount any parts of this story outside of this room, I will deny. I love my husband. I was burned out. He knew it. I was stressed. I was working 7 days a week, more hours than I wanted to, and I'm sure many of you can relate to that. So we get to Belize. My husband signed us up for a cave tubing adventure. And I said, honey, because I trust my husband, honey, what's it going to be like? Now, one thing I know about my husband is that my husband has never been cave tubing. But I trusted that maybe he'd done enough research that he might be able to tell me what to expect in the experience. And so he said, you know, honey, there are probably about 4 or 5 of us on a tube going down the river. It'll be fun. Let's do it. My husband has a little bit more adventure in his personality. He is an engineer who has adventure in his personality. Yeah. So I agree.
We get to the bus that takes us inland. And we start the journey about an hour inland toward the river. The tour guide gives us all release agreements. How many attorneys do I have in the room? Any?
We usually have quite a few.
You normally have some? I wish I had one on that bus with me that day. So gives us a release agreement. And I start reading. And it tells us about the risks. You may see snakes, tarantulas. What? Caiman, our crocodile friends. And I said to my husband, I'm not going. And my husband knows me well enough that he didn't even respond. Okay, honey, if you say you're not going, you're not going. But there was a couple behind us. When they got the release agreements, the wife says to the husband, I'm afraid, I don't want to go. And he says, oh no, you're going. We paid for this. And I'm just listening. I'm not normally a snooper, but I found somebody who had the same feeling that I had, and she kept saying she wasn't going, he kept saying she was, and finally I turned around, being the snooper that I'm not, and I said to her, look, you don't have to go. If you want to stay at the camp with me, you can stay at the camp with me, but you do not have to get on that river if you don't want to. And I turned around. I never made eye contact with the husband. I turned around and sat down, crossed my arms, made my statement, I'm done. We get to the river. She's with her husband. She's still walking. I'm walking. I'll go out to the river. And they said, if you go out and you decide you don't want to stay, we'll have somebody walk you back. Well, I get out to the river. We're at the top of a cliff. There's an 80-plus-year-old couple in front of us. And the only thing that was wounded at that time was my pride. How can you let the 80-plus-year-old couple go in and you're standing here on the cliff? What I realized standing on that cliff that day was that my experience at that moment was reflective of where I was in my life. There were some changes I wanted to make, changes I knew that I needed to make, but changes I was unprepared to make because I hadn't developed a strategy. I didn't have a plan. I wish I could tell you that I stood there and when they said you can dive from the cliff, I decided to dive in. But I am not that bold. They did offer a plan B. They said you can go down this rope, it's about 6 feet, and then you can drop about 5 feet, and you'll plop into the inner tube, which, by the way, was just one tube for me with a headlamp and a life vest, no 4 or 5 people, just mine. Dropped into the tube, and I started going down the river. I made up my mind that day. There are some different outcomes that I want, but it's going to require me to do something that I've never done before. So I popped down into the inner tube. All of a sudden, the river starts taking me off, and I did what any classy woman would do in that situation. I screamed like a girl. I screamed. I grabbed one stranger's hand. Somebody said, grab my foot. I grabbed his foot. If he still has toes, it's a miracle. Eventually, we grabbed hands, and we floated down the river together, and my husband showed up at some point, and I looked irritated. I said if there had been an attorney on that river that day, I would have been a divorced woman. But we survived. Why do I tell that story? It is the most uncomfortable place I'd ever been in my life. And what made it uncomfortable is that I didn't have a plan. Not a perfect plan, but I didn't have an idea of where I was trying to go. And we find ourselves in business like that sometimes. You're caught up in the day-to-day, things are going pretty well, you're doing what you're accustomed to doing, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a place where something needs to change. Doesn't mean you quit your job, doesn't mean you close the doors of your business, but it means that you have to come up with a different strategy. So what's your strategy? What's your plan? How many of you routinely in your organizations go through a strategic planning process, routinely? Great. It is one of the healthiest processes you can ever go through. Anybody ever try to lose weight? You ever put on the pants and they're a little tight and you blame it on the dry cleaners or the washing machine because you really haven't monitored what's been going on, and you think you've been doing well. And I've heard it a million times. I've tried everything possible. I've tried everything I know, and it's not working. Well, the same thing happens in our organizations. Sometimes we get to a place and we don't know how we found ourselves there. And there's some things that we can be measuring and looking at and managing along the way that can help us be more effective. What stands in our way? Any good football fans here? Who's your team? Gators. Colts, Bucks. Dolphins. No Ravens fans? Who won the last Super Bowl? I'm a Marylander. I can't help myself. I know we took somebody else's team, but we're okay. We're proud. There are hurdles that stand in our way, things that keep us from developing strategies and taking the action that we need to take. Sometimes it's the story we tell ourselves. And whether this strategy applies to your career or whether it applies to your business, what's the story you tell yourself? I'll do it later. I've got too much going on. When it slows down around the holidays, okay, it's January, I'm forced to do it, let me take a look at it. I'm not really sure what I would do differently, so I'll just keep doing what I've been doing all of this time. Stories you tell yourself. What are some of your hurdles? You have so much going on that you really don't know how you're going to take that time out to come up with a strategy. How do I set aside hours, let alone days or a weekend or a couple of days in a row? How do I do that when my time is pressed and I have employees to manage and I'm being held to productivity standards and clients are coming in the door, or I'm trying to get clients from leaving? What do I do? What are some of your perceptions about what strategy is? Some people think it's really boring. It can be if that's the way you engage, but it doesn't have to be. What might you find out if you really start looking at what's going on in your business? What might you really find out? I remember the first time I went to a boot camp, and they asked us to track our food every single day. Amount and type. See, I only eat chocolate once a week. At least that's the story I told myself. Well, when I started having to write it down, those cravings came a little more frequently. And when they ask you to estimate portion sizes, I always was quite conservative with my portion size. Just a little conservative. Half a cup? Well, let's just call that a quarter of a cup. What is strategy? And how is it different from tactical execution? Sometimes we get them confused. Strategy is planning. It's larger scale. It's longer term. It's why you're doing what you're doing. Tactical execution is your day-to-day. Here's what I'm going to do specifically. It's smaller scale. Here's what we'll do today, this week, this month. That's tactical execution. What is it that really drives your strategy? Strategy is driven by the vision of your organization. The vision. How many of you have a very clear vision? The ultimate where you want to be. The reason why you're ultimately doing what you do. Vision, clear vision. Everything you do, the strategy you develop, the tactical execution every day should get you closer to your vision. The problem is, if you don't have a clear vision, you don't have a solid foundation to build on. And that can move you from this place to that place, zigzagging, not having clarity, expending a lot of time, energy, money, resources, and still not getting closer to what you're looking for. What drives you? What makes you do what you do? You have your vision, you have your strategy, tactical plans in place, you execute, and then hopefully you're measuring. That's that getting on the scale part. You ever just get up close to the scale, look down, take a big breath before you get on it and think, whew, I hope I'm down? Even though our behaviors may not have been such that would indicate we should be down. What drives you? What makes you do what you do? Values and beliefs. Tell me one of your values. Integrity. And what makes that important to you? The golden rule is important to you. And when it's violated, how do you feel? Not very good. How do you produce when your values are violated? How do you produce? I love learning. I need to know my client's business. I don't need to be an expert, but the first sign that we're going to even have a conversation about a potential relationship, I need to dig in and learn as much as I can. If I don't know anything about what's important to my client, oh, that's frustrating for me. It's impossible for me to give them my best. So what drives you? Core values. Those things that are near and dear to you. We'll talk about those in a little more detail. Your strengths, the things you do very well. What do you do well, personally and organizationally? How do you set yourself apart? You know, one of the myths, I believe, is that we try to come up with something that's so unique and different as a way of setting ourselves apart that we miss some of the tried, true, basic steps, basic practices. You engage with a client. What do you do at the end of the conversation other than collect a check? I went to Chick-fil-A the other day. My mother was on the phone with me, and she said, well, where are you? I said, I'm in the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A. I really didn't need to have a conversation about it, but it's my mother. She said, well, what are you ordering? Mom, this is what I'm saying to myself. I didn't say it out loud. She is still my mother. I'm thinking, Mom, is it really that important? And I really wish you were talking right now so I could mute while I order this cookies and cream milkshake. And then take it off of mute and act like I got a salad, right? So I ordered the milkshake. Every time you go to Chick-fil-A, what happens? Anybody go through Chick-fil-A's drive-thru other than me at 9:30 in the evening? You go through, they're very pleasant. Yeah, how may I help you? Would you like a brownie with that? You have a great day. Pull around. Let me tell you what they did, and I always use them as an example. I came around, and there were a few other cars in front of me, and we waited for a few minutes, a little longer than normal, but I've been in some drive-through lines for a longer time than that, much longer. I get around. Of course, before I get there, they want to know, do you want the whipped cream and the cherry? Well, why turn them down, right? I don't want to cheat them out of an opportunity to do that for me. So I get to the window, and she says, ma'am, I apologize for your wait. Your milkshake's on us. Yeah, wow. I waited, I don't know, 3.5. I'm talking to my mom. I don't even know how long I waited. Your milkshake's on us. That was the best tasting milkshake I've ever had. I thought, wow, talk about how to set yourself apart. What did that cost them? Nothing. Very little. But it's that little thing, the next time I have a taste for a milkshake, I'm going to run right back down to that Chick-fil-A. I'm not going to hope they have a long line, but I certainly will give them my business.